Celsius. Those are the headlines. The next full bulletin is at midday.
Johnathan Vernon Smith.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Yes, good morning. Coming up on the programme at 12:30 on today's lunchtime conversation. Do you think I need to get a dehumidifier? Producer Laura's just got a dehumidifier. It would appear she's not the only person in the office that has one. Some of my colleagues, I've heard them this morning. Oh my word. They talk about their dehumidifier in the way I talk about my luxury air fryer with executive features. Do I need to get a dehumidifier if you have one? 08081 008800. That's the number for your call. First though, for the next hour, who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? The police and crime commissioners for both Bedfordshire and Thames Valley are asking parents not to buy e-scooters this Christmas. Matthew Barber for Thames Valley wants parents to be aware that whilst shops can legally sell them, private e-scooters cannot legally be driven in public places. They can only be used on private land with the authorisation of the landowner, or be rented in areas where there's part of a trial, like Aylesbury, High Wycombe, Princess Risborough and Milton Keynes. Festus Akinbensoye from Bedfordshire has echoed his comments, adding that nowhere in Bedfordshire is part of the e-scooter trials, so no one should be using e-scooters on the streets anywhere in Bedfordshire at all. Well, my question to you, who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? You see them everywhere. Parents seem to be buying them, even though they're illegal. Well, do those parents realise they're illegal? Or are they just ignorant to the fact? 08081 008800, that's the number for your call. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? Maybe you think ultimately what the government should do is just make it illegal to sell them. Then you won't be able to get them from the likes of Currys and Argos and Halfords, all of these legitimate retailers. Is that the way to stop it? On BBC Three Counties Radio, it's Thursday. Coming up at 12:30, we'll talk dehumidifiers. First, though, I want to know, who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? Two of our police and crime commissioners, the police and crime commissioner for Bedfordshire and Thames Valley, they have both said to parents, please do not buy your children e-scooters. They are illegal to use pretty much everywhere, unless you are using them on private land with the landowner's permission. And let's be honest, very few people have a garden that is big enough to be able to use an e-scooter in. They are not legal to use on the pavements, on the roads, in parks. So please do not buy your children e-scooters. But of course, it must be very confusing for people, because I found myself in a store not too long ago, standing there looking at all these boxes of e-scooters for sale on the shelves in a perfectly legitimate retailer, thinking, well, if you see them for sale in that way, you're bound to assume as a parent, well, they must be okay then. You know, if they weren't okay, Currys wouldn't sell them, Halfords wouldn't sell them, Argos wouldn't sell them, B&M wouldn't sell them, all these various retailers that just have them sitting on the shelves as if they're a perfectly normal product. So who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying these e-scooters? 08081 008800, that's the number for your call. If you have bought your children, or maybe your grandchildren, an e-scooter, did you realise they were illegal to use pretty much everywhere when you bought it? Or did you wrongly assume they must be okay? Are you very angry with the retailers for the fact that they just sit there on the shelves as if they're perfectly legitimate products? 08081 008800, that's the number for your call. Tina is in Luton. Hi, Tina.
Hi, JBS.
Hello, Tina. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas?
I think the ultimate blame lies with the law and therefore the government. And I'm not one to generally blame the government for everything, whatever colour they are. But in this instance, it's a silly law. It's legal to sell them, but not legal to use them. Only probably, like you've just covered, in sort of probably 1% of people, if that, have got an estate, a private estate or farmland or something where they can actually use them with permission of the landowner. So therefore, ultimately, I think it's the law. You know, the law is wrong. You shouldn't be able to sell them, and you can't blame the retailers, because if it's legal to sell them, retailers are struggling enough as it is, so therefore you're going to sell them, although I do feel that they should make it very clear in the store, with probably a sign and at point of purchase verbally telling somebody that what the law actually is. And if I was a retailer, I'd be getting them to sign to say that I've told them that law. Yes, the parents should have more common sense, but like you say, does everybody listen? There's a lot of people now that don't know what the law is, and unless it's actually told to them at point of sale, like you say, they might make assumptions. I mean, the whole thing comes down to, though, if we didn't have so many idiots that use them incorrectly, which is a shame for those that want to use them correctly, then it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, I've spoken to you before of one of the experiences I had with somebody using them on a public road. It was a young man who'd picked up a very tiny child and had this child straddling on his leg as he went down the road in front of me. And since then, I've also seen somebody in a supermarket just sort of they were on it, riding it down sort of behind where the tills are. Presumably they didn't want to leave it outside, brought it into the supermarket. I didn't see him whether he was on it round the supermarket, but behind the tills as he'd paid and was going out, he was just riding it, because that's sort of a long length at this particular supermarket.
Oh, so hang on, he was riding the scooter in the store?
In the store, yes, in a supermarket in Beds, Herts and Bucks.
Right. And does this supermarket have security guards?
There is a security guard at the door. Yeah.
Did they say anything to him?
Not that I saw. I mean, I saw him ride along, and obviously he's going towards where the security guards are before he goes out the door. And I mean, at that point, he's going out the door. But people don't challenge. People don't want to challenge anybody. You know, they don't challenge shoplifters or anything now because of the problems that there could be. And the police certainly haven't got the time or the manpower to actually do anything about it either.
Okay,
They can't police it.
Let me challenge some of the things you've said then, if you wouldn't mind. So you started off by saying, you know, ultimately you blame the government, and then you said you don't really blame the retailers, because they're just, you know, they're doing what of course they're going to do, and that's to try and make money from a product that's legal to sell.
Mm-hmm.
But I put it to you, you know, the likes of Currys, Argos, Halfords, B&M, I'm sure there are other shops that sell it as well. They're the only ones that I've actually seen these e-scooters in. You know, they know that the products they are selling to people are not legally allowed to be used on the pavements, on the roads, in parks, in supermarkets, wherever. They know that. And yet they also, unless they really are stupid, will know that many of those customers that are buying those products will use them in all of those environments. So are they not part of the problem? You know, although they are, of course, as retailers, inevitably going to want to try and make money, perfectly reasonable, as long as it is in a legal and reasonable way. But if they know that they're contributing to a big societal problem, shouldn't they take some responsibility?
Well, it would be good if they did, and collectively they would do it, because would one make a stand? Sometimes you think, well, could one make a stand, but are they just going to be the ones that lose out, or is everybody else going to join? If they all collectively join together and say, no, we're not going to sell them, fair enough, but one probably doesn't want to lose out unless they really want it. I don't know. The trouble is, it's not everybody doesn't feel the same way. If everybody felt the same way, then maybe, but would back them, but not everybody feels the same way. You're bound to have people come on here and say, as you have done before, they support electric scooters, so they'll want to buy them. I really do think, though, that the retailers should, if they're going to sell them, they should 100% take responsibility for making sure that people are clear of the law, with big signs that people can read, not a minute little sign, and telling them at the point of sale. And I would go as far as to get somebody to sign it, as I said, sign to say, you know, that they have told them, explained to them what the law is.
But they know, but it comes back to that point, doesn't it? They know that person is going to use that scooter illegally. They know it.
And they know, yeah, I know.
Because if you gave me an e-scooter, I wouldn't know where could I ride? I mean, I live in the countryside, so theoretically, I probably could have a word with a farmer and say, have you got a bit of land that I could ride my e-scooter on? But then, to be honest with you, it's probably not going to be land that is nice and flat and smooth and therefore suitable for an e-scooter. And I don't know anybody with a garden that's big enough to use an e-scooter round. So ultimately, those retailers, they know that everyone buying those scooters is going to use it illegally.
They do, but ultimately, back to the fact, they are not breaking the law, are they? To do the right thing would be not to sell them, but ultimately they're not breaking the law. So if you want the ultimate thing that's to blame, it's the fact that the law is ridiculous. Why have a law in place that you can sell something? I mean, really, you're condoning criminal behaviour, aren't you, really? Because how many of us, there must be less than 1% of the country that has got some big private estate or suitable farmland or something that they can actually ride them. And likewise, parents, if they buy them, they are condoning their children breaking the law, because unless they're going to have them riding around their patio, which would be ridiculous for the size of some of these scooters, they are condoning their children breaking the law.
Okay, thank you, Tina, very much. Steve in Stevenage. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Jonathan. Hi. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Tina said there. You know, the law is quite fundamentally flawed in allowing people to sell these things when we know that they're illegal. And it's not just the retail, it's the wholesalers as well. You know, people shipping it into this country. Why ship something into this country you know that is illegal? So the whole raft of things. But I think everybody's suffering from Teflon shoulders here, you know, non-stick shoulders when it comes to the law, because the retailers are saying, oh, it's not my problem, it's the person who bought it, they got to use it responsibly.
Yeah, and can I just also add a slight cynical note as well? You know, I'm getting messages from people saying, oh yeah, but don't forget those retailers, they have signs up now on the shelves saying these are not able to be used legally. Why are they putting those signs up? Are they putting those signs up because they genuinely want to inform people of the law? Or is it that they've just had a load of customers bringing the product back and saying, how dare you, you sold me this, I've just been in terrible trouble with the police because I'm not allowed to use it?
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter, and I think certainly I don't think there's any sort of social interest there. I think it's just sort of passing on the buck, you know, to the user. And then when the user gets caught, they'll probably just turn around. I've spoken to a few people who've got these things, and I said, well, you know, why have you bought something that's illegal? And you get different answers. You get either an answer that's along the lines of, well, it can't be illegal because it was sold to me, sort of thing. And
it can't be illegal because I got it from Argos or Currys or Halfords.
Yeah.
They're not going to sell it if it's illegal, are they?
That's right. So that's the sort of answer you get. Or I said, well, okay, what about the law? The law's saying you shouldn't be riding this on the pavement, on the streets. Oh, well, if I get caught, I'll just plead ignorance and say that I thought it was, I bought it in good faith because it had been sold by Argos and, you know, whoever. So it's again Teflon shoulders. You know, I think it's a bit of an attitude that exists in society today. You know, if it's not hurting somebody, it doesn't matter, sort of thing. But the danger is it does hurt people because, I mean, this is the time of year I hate when it comes to driving because the lights in our streets are not as good as they used to be. But you go along and you'll suddenly come across an e-scooter, somebody on one, no clear sort of clothing on, no sort of reflective clothing, no lights, anything like that. And this is another problem, is that you need to, if you're going to have these things on the road, they need to be sort of qualified as some sort of a moped type piece of vehicle sort of thing. So that people got certain things they've got to, you know, make sure they've got in place, like lights and brakes, good brakes. They're wearing high-vis jackets and probably even sort of crash helmets, that sort of thing. But until the law is tightened up by the government and the government start to enforce it properly, then people are just going to carry on doing it, aren't they?
Okay, good to talk to you. Thank you very much, Steve. 08081 008800. That's the number for your call. Do join the conversation. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? It's BBC Three Counties Radio. It's the JVS show. We're talking about e-scooters in the run-up to Christmas. And I want to know, who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? The Police and Crime Commissioners for both Bedfordshire and Thames Valley have put out a request to all parents: do not buy your children e-scooters. E-scooters can only be used legally on private land with the authorisation of the landowner. Or, of course, you can use ones as part of a rented scheme. But if you look at Bedfordshire, for example, there's not a single trial scheme in Bedfordshire. So there is nowhere in Bedfordshire on public land that you can legally use an e-scooter. And yet parents are buying them. But I would imagine there are some parents who say, well, the shops sell them. I just assumed because they were for sale in legitimate shops that they must be okay to use. That is not correct, ladies and gentlemen. Lewis is in Biggleswade. Hi, Lewis.
Hi, JVS.
Hi. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas?
Ultimately, obviously, the law should stop people purchasing these. And I'm still surprised that shops are allowed to sell them, to be honest. I bought one a couple of years ago, and they do warn you of the laws and what you can and can't do. So it's kind of like a printed out receipt you get with your normal purchasing receipt.
So when you bought it and they said to you, just to let you know, sir, this is illegal for you to use, why did you buy it?
I spoke to you a couple of years ago when we first spoke about this, and I said I literally just use it for work, in between going to clients, etc. Just to, at the time, because with the COVID,
on public land.
On public land, yes.
So you knowingly use something that is illegal.
Yes, I know, and I said to you last time when we spoke, I said I know the laws, etc. And I know if I do get caught, then I would be in a lot of trouble. It was literally just for work purposes. I've never used it for anything else other than going in between clients' houses just to save on fuel.
Right, but you're prepared to take the risk of getting. I mean, you could have your driving licence taken off you. Do you know that?
Absolutely, yes. And I said I knew the risks of that happening, but I was happy to go with it. And obviously, if I do get stopped and something that was to happen, then obviously I completely stop the whole thing.
Right. But in the meantime, you're going to carry on taking the risk.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't use it too much last year, but I will carry on using it, and I'm hoping that there is some sort of scheme that comes this way where I feel a little bit less. I can be more confident using it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much indeed. That's really interesting. So Lewis uses it illegally. He knows it's illegal, but he hopes that one day it will be legal. So he's just got it for those times. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? If you want to join the conversation, if you want to have your say, share your view on 08081 008800. Jane Wheatley, Rush Hour on BBC Three Counties Radio. David says on the subject of e-scooters, ultimately it's the parents' fault for buying the kids the e-scooters and letting them ride them out in public. The government shoulders responsibility for not making a firm decision on them and not funding the police well enough, so the use of them is policed. Sad thing is, people will pay the price when members of the public are hit and injured, and kids will pay the price when they have incidents with cars and other road users. Thank you, David. More of your calls on 08081 008800 in the next half hour. Call. First, though, in this half hour, I'll continue getting your reaction to this question I've been asking today. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? The Police and Crime Commissioners for both Bedfordshire and Thames Valley are asking parents not to buy e-scooters for their children for Christmas. E-scooters, of course, cannot be used legally anywhere other than on private land with the authorisation of the private landowner. They can, of course, also be used in trial areas, such as Milton Keynes and Prince's Risborough, etc. But in Bedfordshire, for example, there are no trial areas, so there's nowhere legally you can use an e-scooter. Not unless you have a very, very, very big garden. My question to you today, who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? Is it the parents for being dopey? Is it the retailers, many of whom are legitimate, reputable retailers that are selling them? Is that giving people the wrong impression that they're perfectly acceptable things to buy? Or is it ultimately the government who should clamp down on them and stop them being sold? Of course, the trouble is, and the cynic in me says, that on every single e-scooter that's sold, you're charging 20% VAT, aren't you? It's quite a lot of extra VAT for the public coffers, isn't it? Ash Medforth is from Just Stick a Red Johnnet campaign and joins us now. Hello to you, Ash.
Hi, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So, who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas?
I think it is a little bit of 6 and 1, half of what you've already mentioned. However, when we discuss it, I frame it in a different way. If I was to, I think it's comparable to deniability from the parents. They just don't, and comparable ignorance. They don't want to actually, and pester power. But if I frame it this way, if I was to get a standard 50cc moped, take the reg plate off it, and give it to my 14-year-old kid and send them out on that without a helmet, within a few minutes they'd be nicked, and rightly so. There's no difference between an e-scooter and a moped, barring they don't have a seat and there's 8 miles an hour difference in top speed. So, parents just, they look different and they see them as different and they don't see the harm that they could do. So I think it's more the kid pesters the parent, they see it all over, their mates have got them, and the parent just turns a blind eye to it in that sense. Although technically it's in the public domain everywhere. Everybody is, in every press article, paper, it says you're not allowed to ride them, but parents just go and do it still. So it bewilders me slightly.
So do you think the parents realise it's illegal then? Do they buy them knowing that they're buying their child something illegal to use?
Yes, I think a lot of them do actually, and I think they're just right. Well, everybody else is doing it, so mine can go. What they don't realise is if their kid gets caught on one, they can get 6 points and a £300 fine. And I think a lot of parents I've spoken to have said, well, they're under 16, so they can't get points on their licence. But what they don't realise and get offended when it does happen to their kid, and it has happened, is that when you get caught at 14, you get a ghost licence produced at the DVLA, and then those points sit and wait there till the kid applies for a licence at 16. So when they apply for the licence, they've got 6 points on and are unlikely to get insurance then. So I don't think they realise that fact of it, and I don't think they think their child can actually get points on their licence or anything either. But actually, to the legality, I think they definitely know that. But they just think they'll get away with it and the police will just ignore them. So in the big push of it, I think the police, although they don't have the resources to do it, should be clamping down harder and literally see anybody they see on one, seize it, crush it, and take it off the road.
But then ultimately, isn't it unfair on people that the government haven't taken a stronger position on this? They either need to legalise them and find a way that they can be legal and safe, or
that's going to be happening next year. That's in the new transport bill. But the problem is, what's going to be legalised is not what people are going to be wanting. Essentially, you're going to end up with 12-inch wheels. You're going to end up with 2 mechanical or hydraulic brakes. You're going to end up with a fire-safe battery and probably insurance and possibly even a license plate as a sort of light moped light sort of classification. That means every e-scooter sold to this point is not going to be legalised. Therefore, the government is going to have an absolute nightmare of it when everybody realises that the e-scooter they bought is never going to be legal.
So why don't they just clamp down on it now? Why haven't they clamped down on it before? Why haven't they said...
They just don't have the resources.
No, but it doesn't take resources, does it, to just pass a bill that says it is illegal to sell an e-scooter in the United Kingdom?
Oh, I can explain that one to you, Jonathan. Okay, so I do trial biking on a motorbike, yeah? Motorcycle trial biking, yeah? And when I go and buy a new one to compete on, I go to a shop and it says very clearly on that vehicle, this is not road legal, it is for use in off-road sport. An e-scooter is in exactly the same category. Every time you go into those stores, you will see in very small print, this is not for use on public roads and is illegal. So it's on every advisory. If you go onto eBay or Amazon, sorry, I'm not allowed to, I'm sorry, I'm not meant to make a story.
But to be perfectly honest, if the government, I come back to the point, if the government wants to stop e-scooters being used everywhere, pass a bill, change the law, and make
But then
it
that would ban
illegal.
me from buying my trial bike.
No, it wouldn't, because you could change the law in such a way that you still allow
Yeah,
trial
yeah.
bikes to be used, and yet you change the classification for the e-scooter. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it, for the government to do
Well,
that?
you could do it on seated position only. You could say, but then my trial bike doesn't have a seat on it. So your trial bike doesn't have a seat on it.
Listen,
So
where there's a will, there's a way. If the government really wants to stop people getting e-scooters, they could pass a law to stop e-scooters being sold in the UK. Then the likes of Currys and Halfords and Argos and all these other retailers that have got them sitting on the shelves, perfectly legitimate retailers with a good reputation, where a customer might go in and think, well, that must be okay. I mean, surely you can buy these things and use these things, because
Well,
otherwise
it's
Halfords aren't going to have
classification,
sold it to me.
it's type classification, because I have an electric trial bike without a seat. Essentially, it's got two wheels, a battery, an engine, and somewhere to stand. It's an in any other terms, it's an e-scooter. It's really difficult to put classifications out that don't encompass another vehicle in it and make that one illegal to buy or use. Road type classifications are really difficult. Because
it just seems to me that there obviously isn't very much desire to do it, is there? And is that the cynic in me? The cynic in me puts this out for a genuine question for debate. Is it that actually e-scooters, when they are sold, that then generate the 20% VAT that goes into the government coffers, is actually quite helpful at a time where the country hasn't got that much spare money?
Granted, totally granted. But as I said, they are looking at the type classifications. I think what's going to happen is there'll be a moped-like classification, which could include a registration plate. So that once they've got a registration plate on it, the enforcement becomes really much easier. Because when a policeman sees an e-scooter with a registration plate, it's legal. When he sees one without, it's illegal. Grab it, crush it, and then they'll just be a mass cull and take them off the road at that point. And I think that's just the legislation they're looking for is going to encompass that.
So any parent buying their child an e-scooter at the moment is an absolute idiot, because they're going to end up buying something that this time next year will have been crushed.
Well, what won't be legalised, because there's no e-scooter. I mean, I'm working with a couple of e-scooter manufacturers to look at what will be legalised and develop models for that. But it's going to be nothing like the ones that are being sold now. Even down to the battery, the DVLA already has certification for fire-safe batteries, where you've got to have a certified fire-safe battery, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, because with all the fires that go on, they can be lethal. But any parent who's buying one now needs to realise that the one they're buying is not going to be the one they're going to legalise, and they could have all sorts of devices fitted now, so they can be identified easily and got rid of. So they're buying a very short-term present that could give their kids 6 points on their licence when they get to 16, and possibly cause them to get in trouble if they hit an old lady. You know, as you know, my daughter was hit by an e-scooter and severely injured. They could cause all types of... And you, as I said, frame it this way. You wouldn't allow a 14-year-old child to ride down a road on a normal moped without a registration plate or a helmet, so why are you letting them do it on an e-scooter?
Okay, Ash, thank you very much. Good to talk to you. Ash Medforth is from the Just Stick a Red on It campaign. Charles in Watford. Hello, Charles.
Hello, Jonathan.
Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas?
Everybody, to be perfectly honest, Jonathan. The parents, if a parent doesn't know that an e-scooter is illegal, they must have been living on Mars. There's been enough publicity about it. The companies themselves are selling the scooters legally at the moment, and they shouldn't be. The government, as you quite rightly mentioned earlier on, are getting a rake off from the sale of these scooters, and the police are not doing enough to get rid of people riding on these scooters in Hertfordshire. I'm pleased to see that 2 crime commissioners have come out with this plea not to buy the e-scooters. I'm very disappointed that the police commissioner for Hertfordshire has not done the same. It is absolutely ridiculous.
But ultimately, if you are, and you say parents, you know, they must be living under a rock or something if they haven't noticed that they're illegal. I mean, the problem is some people, and I'm going to just say this as it is, some people, Charles, are a bit thick. And if they're a bit thick, and if they haven't been paying any attention to the news, and if they listen to other people who have all gone and bought their children electric scooters, and then they go into a legitimate shop, I don't need to name them because I've already named the shop so many times, but you know, a genuine reputable retailer that you can trust, and they've got, sitting there in a nice smart box, an e-scooter, surely you can understand why some of those parents might end up thinking, well, it must be okay to buy these things and to use them, because otherwise they wouldn't be sold and put on the shelves.
Well, you had one caller on earlier on, I think his name was Louis, who rides an e-scooter. He says he rides it for work, just occasionally and everything else. He knows he's breaking the law. He's going to continue breaking the law, and he's lucky he's not being caught. Now, I deal an awful lot with the police in my area in Watford and Abbots Langley, and when I speak to them about e-scooters, their reaction is, we can't stop them because they're so fast and everything else. But when they do stop them, they use this ludicrous phrase of offering them words of advice and telling them not to ride the scooter. If they're caught riding it again a second or even a third time, that is when the scooter is taken away. It should be taken away immediately and crushed. Now, this morning, I was driving about 7:30 back home this morning in the dark, and I came across an e-scooter in the middle of the road, no lights. The rider was completely in black, and I nearly hit that rider, and he's lucky he's not in the hospital today.
Well, it would appear that on all kinds of levels, people can be quite stupid.
Sure.
People buying them and people using them as well. Charles, thank you very much indeed. 08081 008800. Who do you blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas? Stephen Baldock has been in touch. I blame the parents. This is on the subject of e-scooters and who we blame for the fact that parents are buying their children e-scooters for Christmas. So Steve says, I blame the parents, but it doesn't help that shops sell them. It also doesn't help that there's little to no enforcement by the police, which is hardly surprising, considering the lack of bobbies on the beat. Thank you, Steve. Chris is in Bedford. Hello to Chris.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Chris. Who do you blame?
Well, I'm on the side of your last, input there. The shops, they're giving a message which isn't consistent with not the law, but what's practically normal and what's going on. These devices are not allowed to be used in the public space, on public roads, on the pavement, etc., etc. The number of people who would actually have space for these to be used, and they get up to sort of 15 miles an hour, 12, 15 miles an hour. You need quite a lot of space for that. And that's such a tiny proportion of people who have got the space for that to be used. I'd very much like to see them be brought into our society properly, licensed, registered, regulated, etc., etc., with certain rules around it. But until that happens, we can't, as a community, be used to them and know what to do with them. And therefore, they're not safe, certainly, for children to use. But they're, I've always been an advocate for them. I would save a lot of money for my, single person commute, for my journeys that I only need to take by myself and don't need to take anything with me. I think it's important we get them into common use. But at the moment, they are illegal to use on the road. They should only be used on private land. And, and even as a toy, well, what are you going to do? Use it down the hallway. But the message that comes from the fact that they are so widely available is that they have a purpose.
So let me put something to you and see what you think about this. Is it the case then that whilst the retailers may be doing something that's perfectly legally acceptable, it's morally unacceptable to sell these things?
Yeah, I would say so, because it's a waste of money. Here, spend loads of money on this thing that will immediately depreciate because it will be second-hand, this thing that has no purpose. Essentially, you're buying it as a collector's piece because you can't legally use it. In fact, if you were,
I wonder whether
have it taken from you.
Yeah, but I wonder whether what you're saying there actually makes it sound better than it is, because isn't there an argument to say that the shops are selling items not thinking, oh, well, this is just going to be a collector's piece that somebody puts on a shelf and just looks at. That, in fact, it's worse than that. Those retailers are selling products that they know are going to be used illegally, are going to be used in a way that puts members of the public and other road users at danger, and they are doing so because technically, legally, they're allowed to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it hasn't happened often, but I was nearly knocked off my feet on someone on the pavement. I'm a, fit 40-something, and the guy came flying around the corner and nearly took me out, smashed his bag on the lamppost as he went past, as he swerved out of my way. And these are dangerous. Not everyone is as quick as I am, and it could cause an injury. And, so yes, they're selling something that is illegal to use, could be confiscated, could cause danger to other people and to the person riding it. It's absolutely ludicrous. I'm kind of thinking of other examples, but, it's obvious. It speaks for itself. They shouldn't be sold if they can't be used.
Chris, thank you very much.